So thank you so much for inviting me and being over here. Um, Research methodology, that is your total area. Now let us see, in life, do we do research at different levels? Not necessarily in the laboratory. The research begins from your home also. um, you watch your TV and suddenly you find the picture not coming properly. So what do? Do you go running to a technician? No, you try to do something. You open an organizer and you do something, and you keep on ruling out. This is not correct. It is ruled out. This is not correct. It is ruled out. This is a possibility. Let me try it. And sometimes possibility leads to good results, and that is serendipity. You say, oh, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I'm happy. Though you're sitting in watertight compartments, females here and males here, but females also look after the household, and every day they have to cook something for the family. Now, if you interact with me and you share this with me, can you tell me, do you make the same menu every week? Do you do research for for making a good menu? Yes, you do research without realizing that you're doing research. You do research. I've seen women opening Google and seeing recipes. This is what I'm going to cook today. And then you cook and you make and all, and you find, no, the taste is not coming up to the mark. Then what do you say? What has happened? Now, which variable in the dish that you make did not blend with the totality and it gave you wrong results? So what do? You start eliminating that particular variable. So variable comes in your cooking also. Am I correct? Yes. Same thing happens with your child rearing. Now, child rearing also is something which is very scientific, and you have to use your research. You go and study Spock, and you talk to people and you ask them, मैं क्या करूं अपने बच्चे के साथ? This is what is happening. What should I do? Now, that what should I do again lead you to your research. If I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, that person told me this will happen. So you say, okay, let me do this with my child and see what happens. And you find your child is revolting after what you have done. So you say, okay, that particular suggestion was wrong, hypothesis was wrong. Aren't you using hypothesis? You rule it out and you say, no, my child is different from what that child was. So there is variation in the variables. And so you find a new strategy to deal with your child. Am I correct? So same thing over here when we talk of this experimental design in our own area, whether it is architect, whether it's engineering, whether it is management, the methodology always remains the same because it's an inquiry into what you want to do in life. Now, let us see what is research. We are talking of research. I think the earlier classes also you had, that was a research. What is research? Now, research does not consist of mere information gathering. Many people think if we go to Google, we collect lots of information and that is enough. That is not enough. What you do with that information, that is important. Then it is not simply transporting facts that you take from here and then you transport to some other area. Or you collect 4 or 5 theses, copy from them, and then give your result. That is plagiarism. Okay, so that is not research. Merely rummaging for information is not research. ढेर सारा आपने इकट्ठा कर लिया. You collect lot of information. That is not research. That is just collection. Even when a student is studying for 10th level or 12th level, do you have children of that age? The people sitting over here, are your children in class 10 or 12th or higher than that? Is it higher or lower? Lower? Okay. By the time they come to 10th and they come to 12th, since I'm a psychologist, I like to take interest in all areas of development and all areas of growth. I'm seeing what NCERT is giving them, what CBSE is giving them as a syllabus. It is horrendous. They expect the child to know everything about everything. If he's doing physics, everything A to Z. How do we expect a child of 12th grade or 10th grade to do everything about physics, which maybe people are doing at the MSc level? And then once they've finished 12, then they feel very relaxed and comfortable. Once they've got a admission into some institute, then they are very relaxed and they're enjoying themselves. I've seen people who have gone to Bombay or Chennai or Bangalore or Calcutta. When they came back, those boys and girls, they said, oh, we have never had the time of our life which we are having now. We were really like बुलक को आपने लगाया होता है बैलगाड़ी के अंदर. We were like that till 12th. Now, what I'm trying to say is, what are we doing for them? Collecting so much of information, rummaging information, and putting it down in, cramming it down in their brains. But if you ask them to be able to use it, nothing is being done. But if you go to foreign countries, they let the child explore knowledge, put it together according to him, and give something new. Write something new as he or she is perceiving about that knowledge. Do our schools or our children do that? I think you are all married, aren't you? बच्चे वाले हो ना? You are unmarried, okay. तो छोटे भाई बहन होंगे, खुद होंगे, okay. So don't you come across this? That what are children doing now? What are they made to do in the schools? Lot of information is being dumped into them. In the examination, they are vomiting out literally. And after that, it's tabula rasa. Because I asked, in one of these universities, they asked me to teach management, MBA classes. And I said, okay, I'll do EQ with you, development of EQ. And they said, no, please teach them emotions also, and then EQ also. I said, fine. Now, in emotions, can you teach emotions without your physiological setup or physiological system? You can't. No, I asked some of them, I said, well, are you aware that you have autonomic nervous system? This you must have done in your biology class. They said, what biology class? Imagine they have done it in 10th. Now, if I ask you, do you have an autonomic nervous system? Do you have or no? Even you people are not aware of it. Just touch your spine. Touch your spine. Along with that spine, there is a ganglion of nerves. If those ganglion of nerves did not exist, you would not have experienced emotions. Now, isn't it something very important part of life? But if you don't know that, how do you know that when you are angry, what happens? When you are afraid, what happens? When you are sad, what happens? That ganglion of nerves fires information into your cortex here, where interpretation takes place, and then you feel. If you are angry, what do you feel? Ek thappad laga do, ek ghusa maar do, shout at people, okay. But if you are afraid, what do? You take to heels, you run. But if I ask you now, can you run? You can sprint like that? No, you'll not be able to do that. But if you are afraid, you will be able to do that. Now what is happening is, adrenaline is being pumped into your system. And that is how you are running, or you are slapping people, or you are beating people who are taller than you and fatter than you. So that energy is coming from where? From the secretion of the adrenaline. Now all these things, adrenaline, your ductless gland, your autonomic nervous system, this is taught in biology class. Am I correct or no? But when you come to MBA and when you are made to do emotions, because without understanding emotions, you can't understand emotional intelligence, you are blank. Now what is happening? Lot of information has been rummaged. When you were in 10th, you did rectification. You know what rectification is? You did rectification, a lot of rectification, and said, okay, nerve impulse, this thing, the impulse is discharged. And after that, you are finished. Now, knowledge is something which remains with you. Even when you have cleared your courses and you have cleared it remains as a part of your lifetime gift. So research is not temporary affair, rummaging, collecting a lot of information. Research does originate with a question or a problem. That question and problem can be anything. If you are an architect, okay, what sort of architectural design should I have in a place like Chandigarh where we have a lot of sun and a lot of wind? Will we have the same sort of architectural design which you have in Norway and Sweden? Architects, am I correct? Now, you will be a good architect if you realize what is happening over here. I can name somebody late, Mr. Satnam Singh. You've heard of him? Well, he was like my younger brother, and I really missed him when he went away. So he said, ma'am, you can't live in a ready-made house. Your personality is not like that. I said, yes, I can't live in those little dabbas, no matchboxes. I feel suffocated. I said, I want to have light and I want to have air. My house doesn't have curtains like that. In the daytime, I have no lamps on, but you have plenty of sunshine in my house. And as far as air is concerned, there's cross ventilation only when it is very hot. We need to use fan or something. And in my ground floor, I still don't use an air condition. So now that thought of thinking, what is that? The problem. Okay. Now, when you are making houses, I'm just referring to the architecture, okay? When you are making houses for people, don't you ask them, if you're a good architect, don't you ask them, well, what are you expecting out of your house? Think baat keh rahi hu na? Because people are going to live over there. And if you have constructed according to your this thing, those people will always say, no, I wanted something else और मुझे कुछ और मिल गया है. I wanted something else और मुझे कुछ और मिल गया है. But a good architect, what will he do? He or she, एक गिलास भी ला दीजिए. ऐसे में कैसे पीऊंगी पानी? हेलो, एक गिलास भी ला दीजिए. अच्छा. So, am I correct? So, research, what would be the research? To understand that the house that I'm making for somebody, what is his or her requirement and what do we want out of that? Then your plan would be adequate. Same thing about management. You people are from management. Now in management, a person may be brilliant as an engineer, may be getting 90% marks or even more than that. But if EQ is missing, can he make a good manager? You've done EQ, soft skills you talk about. Okay. Now, from where did this come? In fact, somewhere I would like to take you back to my own days when I was doing psychology. I found that people say a very intelligent person should have very high academic achievement. So way back in 60s, my PhD thesis was on this: intelligence, academic achievement, and personality. And lo and behold, the correlation between academic achievement and intelligence was only about 0.20 or 0.30. You know correlation? Okay. Now 0.20 or 0.30 means 70% is being accounted by something else, not by intelligence, not by your cognitive ability. And then I went on and on. Further research, personality variables, I found that people who are introvert, they score better than people who are extrovert with same intelligence level. Now, this was a very important finding, that your personality can influence your academic achievement. Now, coming back to management. Earlier, it used to be felt that a person used to be a technocrat and good in that, and so he'll be a good manager. So, since I've been associated with the industry also, there was a firm by the name of Alpha Drugs long time ago. Nobody is from pharmacy here. Okay. So the boss said that Professor Vidhu Mohan ko bulao and she must take up some classes. So no, what they did, there was no HR person at all. So they called the library person and she said, librarian ko, Go and contact Mrs. Mohan और उनको कह के lecture दे दें. So she came to me and she said, आपका lecture रखवाना है, आप lecture दे दो. I said, किस चीज पे? What do you want me to speak about? Anything, कुछ भी बोल दो. मैंने कहा कुछ भी का क्या मतलब है भाई? You are wanting me to address your managers in different department. There must be some objective with which you are calling me. कुछ कर दीजिए, मोटिवेशन कर दीजिए, टाइम मैनेजमेंट कर दीजिए, लीडरशिप कर दीजिए. I said, now hold on. It means that you know nothing about management. Firstly, we talk of leadership. Within leadership, one parameter is motivation. Now, you let me do leadership. That is the broad spectrum. From that, motivation will emerge, and then I'll take up motivation with them. So I did the leadership workshop with them, and I do workshop where I do things with people. They see for themselves where they are. And I found that those managers, they were little Hitlers. अपने डिपार्टमेंट में छोटे छोटे हिटलर बैठे हुए थे. So then I told the top boss, I said, well, if you are having these managers and you are not giving any training to modify their behavior, you are in for trouble. तो इसे रस पड़े कोई नहीं, हमारा बहुत ठीक चल रहा है. I said, fine, it's okay. What is it to me? So they thought psychology वाले कर रहे हैं, क्या कर रही हैं, ऐसे कह के चले जाएंगे. 6 months, and there was a strike in their company. Then he came back to me again. कुछ करो. मैंने कहा वो 6 महीने जो आपने गुजार दिए without doing anything, those were very crucial because the managers that you had, they were small Hitlers. और Hitlers में revolt तो होता ही है ना. So the revolt has taken place. I said, this you should have done long time ago. Your managers had no EQ. They should have been given imparted training with EQ. Okay. Now, recently in Mahatma Gandhi Institute next door, they had people for central services recruited all over India, and they asked me to do a program for them. They wanted to see their input at the start, at the initial level, and then at the exit level. So I said, okay, now what we want to do is we want to see whether training has given some impact. So I gave them tests on self-esteem, because self-esteem leads to better performance of work, and interpersonal skills, because if you are in this sort of a government job, you are in relation to people. Am I correct? Even engineers, you are in relation to people. You are not doing work yourself. You are getting work done. What is easy? Getting work done or doing yourself? Doing or getting done? Getting work done. I think that is most. It's easy. Difficult. That is difficult. Think again. Doing work yourself or getting it done? Because that is in my control. So I don't have to have. Now again, think of it. Doing the work or getting it done. You are an architect. Huh? Yeah. Now you give the design and everything. But then there is a ठेकेदार who is going to implement it. You are not doing it. Yeah. You leave the ठेकेदार after explaining, and when you come after 1 week or something else is done. But if you were there at the site doing things yourself, these things would not have misfired. So what is easier, doing or getting done? Doing, of course. But when you are in a managerial position, you are getting work done from people. Now, which means your interpersonal skills of getting work done from people should be of consequence. Now, I did these 2 parameters with them. They went in for training, and I said, okay, now let us see what has happened. If the training has been successful, their self-esteem should go up, and their interpersonal skills should definitely go up. And I was very happily surprised because the scores that I got, it was significant at 0.001 level. You know what this means? Highly significant. That means training which was imparted was highly significant, highly useful in improving their soft skills. Because if soft skills are improved, your performance level automatically goes up. Okay, I've done work otherwise also on the effect of soft skills and performance. the performance graph goes up, its soft skills are improved. This is all research. But you do different designs, you do different parameters to do all this. This is what we are talking about of research. This requires a clear articulation of goal. What do you want? Like I'm telling you, the central services, the group that came. So the idea was that after training, do they improve certain skills which will be useful in their public dealing? Because they're going to do public dealing. Now, if interpersonal skills improve, public dealing would be better, which did improve with the training. So which meant the input of training was good. That is the reason it shows improvement. Then follow a specific plan or procedure or a method. Methodology is important. You can't just rummage things here and there, and you can't put your hands anywhere and do it. You have to systematically plan all that thing. And this requires collection and interpretation of data. You collect data, and then you interpret it and see whether it has given you dividends or it has not given you dividends. So this is what is research about. This is a model that I have developed about research as such. I think you have done something about research during these days, from where we start and how do we end. It's a circle. So you will see in that circle, on this side, you find abstractness, and the continuum goes down to concreteness. We begin with abstract concepts and we keep on concretizing them. At the bottom, what you have differentiation and then you have integration. You integrate those things. So from abstract to concrete, from differentiation to integration, this is your two continuum. Now, what happens in between, that is important. The first thing is you have some problem. You feel, okay, I'm an engineer, so I'm a civil engineer, okay? Now, roads have to be constructed. Okay, am I correct? Roads are part of your domain. But you find that the way roads are constructed, one heavy shower of rain brings potholes again. And then you also see that the roads which were built long time ago, they did not show this sort of thing at all. You go to see the old buildings which were built in time of Mughals or even before that, they're still holding. I don't know how many of you have been to Jaipur. Have you seen the palace over there, Jaipur Palace? In heat of June, month of June, I took my students there for a visit. When you go inside, it is like air conditioned. Cool. All architectural designing. But we forgot that, and Corbusier came over here and he gave little matchboxes, and we sit in Chandigarh with those matchboxes, suffocating somewhere. No natural light, no fresh air. But of course, here I can't ask you to pull the shades on, because otherwise, whenever I go in any of my classroom, I say, first thing, just open the shades. Let the natural light come, because this thing, as a psychologist, I'm telling you, it can be very depressing. If you live day in and day out in this sort of atmosphere, depression is bound to set up. And medically, in India, depression is increasing. And then I talked to them. I said, okay, if you keep on sitting like that, depression will increase. Tagore started Shanti Niketan. Where? Under trees. And the people who did their job in Shanti Niketan, they all went forward, nothing backward. Because if you deny yourself the natural atmosphere, the natural oxygen that you are getting, the natural light that you are getting, what about your deficiency of vitamin D? To be there? And what about your oxygen intake? You are, no matter how much air conditioning is there, but what you are doing, cycled. So fresh air is not taking place. So as a result, what is happening? The disease graph is going up. When I was a child, Chandigarh had only one hospital. Now Chandigarh has multiplicity of hospitals, and each hospital is crowded, whether it is private or it is Government hospital, crowded. PGI, you go, you are knocking against the people. You go to sector 16, you go to 32, this is the government hospital. You go to Fortis, you go to Max, again they are crowded. So what is happening? Somewhere we have denied the nature and we are paying price for that through our health. Then the problem is there. Then you make a design, okay, you focus. Problem was that big. Then you start focusing, come down to the design. And you say, okay, design, what sort of design do I make? Now here, whether you want to do it as an experimental design, or you want to do a survey, or you want to do a case study, all those things come into the picture. That thing starts here only. Then you funnel it furthermore. Operational plan. Okay, if I want to have a correlational study, what will I do? I have one variable, I have another variable. I'd like to see the correlation between the two. The data should be generated from these two variables. आपको समझ आ रहा है ना जो कुछ मैं कह रही हूँ? आ रहा है? ठीक है? Okay. Now, from abstract, you have moved to concreteness. Now, in this operational plan, your design will be concrete. What tools are you going to use? What methodology you are going to use? That is important, and that is where your experimental design and everything will come, which we will do in details now. From there, then you go to the observation. What is that? That is data collection. It can be in the laboratory. It can be through tools. Management people use tools. And you take it from psychology and then you use it for your management. But we are the ones who have given you those tools, okay? And those tools have to be valid and reliable. Whatever instrument you are using, that has to be calibrated. Am I correct? If your tools are not proper, your data also will be spurious. Once you have that, now from differentiation, you're going to integration. What integration is? Whatever variables you had controlled, whatever dependent variable you had, you have got a data now. The data is there. Now, in data integration, now you want to do analysis. You want to see whether whatever I have derived, is it dependable? Can I predict on the basis of that this will happen again? If you have these parameters, this will happen again. अगर आपने खाना बनाया है, अगर इतना नमक डालोगे तो ये असर होगा, इतना मिर्च डालोगे तो ये होगा, इतनी चीनी डालोगे तो ये होगा, है ना? तो फिर आप क्या करते हैं? You measure those things. And after measuring, you redo, repeat that same experiment. And then you say, now it's okay. With this type of menu जो भी है, आपका यही result आएंगे. तो data analysis हो गया. And then conclusion. That yes, my hypothesis, whatever I had built, it has been upheld. But you find no, it has not been upheld. So then what happens? New horizons. New problem is there. Why did it not occur? What happened that what I had predicted or hypothesized, something has happened in between when it is not taking place. I'll give you a concrete example. I produced 41 PhDs, doctorate. So this is one of the doctorate. This work was done on deprived and non-deprived children. Problem-solving behavior of, I think psychology can be understood by everybody, no? So what we did was that we took schools like St. John's, Carmel. You have heard of these schools? Very elitist schools, and English medium school, and administered problem-solving behavior. No, these children were persistent till they solved the problem. They would not leave it. So the data came along with that. How many trials they took? That was the data. But children who were coming from government schools, once they found that after 2-3 trials they cannot do it, they would put it aside and start playing marbles. Marbles से खेल रहे हैं, ठीपरियों से खेल रहे हैं. They started doing that. So my students said, कि मेरी PhD तो नहीं होती, मेरा तो design सारा fail हो गया. They are not doing anything. I said, no, your PhD is not going to fail. It's something new that we have found, which nobody had found earlier. That in problem solving, perceived deprivation and non-perceived deprivation is having some sort of an effect. And when this PhD work was done, of course, we used to have foreign examiners. She got wonderful report on that, and they said it's something new that you have given to us. And then I said, okay, now the new finding is that with the deprived children, first of all, we have to motivate them. Like St. John and Carmel and those children, they are very highly motivated, highly competitive. Until unless you bring in competition and motivation in these children, they would not do. So then we took a small group of those deprived children, motivated them, and then saw, yes, now they were performing. So our hypothesis, one thing led to another, new horizons, and the new horizons led to this, that if we motivate these people, the results do come. So motivation happens to be a very strong factor. प्रेरणा अंदर है तो होगा, प्रेरणा नहीं है तो नहीं होगा. Now, this would be true whether you are doing engineering or you're doing what sort of control do we have in our research? There will be some studies with control will be almost perfect. Let's say physics, for example, maths, for example, perfect control. But if you come for management, control would not be perfect. Even maybe in architectural designing, the human element is there, the human factor is there. You may have designed one koti for one group of people, and the same design you put for another. They say, no, we don't like it. Okay. What a person in Kerala would like would not be the same as what person in Punjab would like to have as a design. Am I correct? So the same design would not hold true in both the cases. Now in this case, what is happening is, it is not like physics that you can mathematically solve the problem and give there. It's not mathematics that 2 into 2 will always be 4. No, it can be 5 also. Now this normal probability curve, can you see the graph? Normal probability curve. You have very low control and you have very high control, and you have in between. Now in the very high category, you have highly controlled scientific experimentation. This is the top level experimentation where variables are controlled, everything is controlled, calibrated, everything, not even a fraction moves here and there. Because in, I think, physics, when you talk of time and speed, things have to be totally to the point. Am I correct? To even the fraction of a minute, second. Then you can have laboratory experiments. When you go to the laboratory, you are controlled things and everything is controlled. But you can have field experiments also. Now, what sort of field experiments do you have? Now I've come to management. You go to an industrial setup. We want to see what do the workers or the foreman think of the boss. If the thinking is positive, then the work will be better. If it is not positive, they will not bother. But then your tools that you use, they should be correct. And the work environment should be compatible with the other company. Am I correct? Now, in these field experiments, you're not in a position to control those things. नहीं होता ना, आपने बंदरों पे काम करना है, तो शिमला के बंदर और कलकत्ता के बंदर will they be the same? So field experiment में आपकी जो control है, that becomes a little less. Then you come to quasi-experimental methods. I'll discuss those with you. Quasi means there are experiments, no doubt, but they're not fully controlled experiments. So the level of control goes down. Now, if you are doing very highly controlled work and normal distribution control is there and quantitatively measurable is there, then you use parametric statistics. You have heard of this, parametric and non-parametric? No. You use statistics now for seeing whether your results are dependable or they're not dependable. Now, parametric means that the distribution of your score should be normal distribution. I think this is the first thing you do in maths, normal probability curve. Without that, you can't go anywhere. Okay. So this is the basic thing for your research also. If you find that there is a normal probability curve, only then you can use parametric. But if you find multimodals, the curve is coming like this, like this, like this. This is multimodal. Then you can't use parametric, because where will be your mean? Mean is the central tendency. It has to come in the center. But if you are multimodal, then you can't have parametric. But on the other side, when scientific control becomes a little less, you have observation phenomena as they occur. Maybe you want to study the effect of solar eclipse. Now, can you do a solar eclipse? Can you make the sun undergo a solar eclipse? No. It will happen in nature as and when it wants to happen. But you can be ready. Like this year is going to be a very big solar eclipse, and it will be visible in America. So the scientists will merge towards America to see the effect of solar eclipse there. You get my point? Now, this is that type of research. It is research, but you wait for certain phenomena to occur to be able to measure it. Anything, for that matter, anything. A tsunami, you can't cause a tsunami. Whenever it happens, it will happen, and then you can use it. Or maybe like Uttarakhand had tsunami here also. Okay. Earthquake, architects. Earthquake will happen only then you will see what sort of building you have to make. Okay. Or you go to Japan and then see what is happening over there. They have lots of earthquakes. But India also has earthquake. Okay. Then you have ex post facto designs, which means things have already occurred. Now you want to see how they've affected people, how they've affected life, or how they've affected your work, your research, your whatever you are doing. Okay. Then even less controlled things are case studies, clinical method case studies. I think in architectural designing, case studies do come. Okay. Not so much in engineering. They do, but not to such a thing. But management, do you have case studies? I know case study is a very important tool that you use, because lots of management institutions, they call me to do the case study method with them. Now, case study method is with less control, absolutely less control, and maybe only on the basis of one case study, you want to make some generalization. But can you make generalization? You can't. So you have extreme control, you have very low control. And in between are all the other factors. Any questions so far? Is understandable? No, you can ask. This I'm just trying to show this thing only, that research typologies can be of two types. You can have qualitative research, you can have quantitative research. And in quantitative, you collect a lot of data, and then you do analysis, and then you come to the conclusion. But in qualitative research, you are having one case, another case, and then you are doing this thing. Like in medical, there are case studies. For example, if they have done some sort of a heart surgery, they can't keep on replicating. We will have 100 heart surgeries, and then no, it will just be there. Ophthalmologist, okay, case of glaucoma. What glaucoma is? Kala motiya. Okay, case of glaucoma has come. One glaucoma is a patient 80 years old, and one patient is 8 days old. Now, can you repeat that again and again? No, it will be a case study. Okay, so that is qualitative, and you can see lots of people there and just one person with a case study. Empirical research. Now, what we are aiming today is more for empirical research, not so much for case study. Experimentation, interpretation of results, and presentation of results. This is what happens in experimental. Then originate with question or a problem, which I showed you in that circle. Requires a clear articulation of a goal. You must be very clear on what goal you want to have. Now, again, I'm coming to management because I'm on the board of studies of various management departments for research, and this was Thapar University. I was doing there. So one MBA student, she came with her design and everything, and she said, I'll collect data on 5,000 people, and one from Calcutta, one from Bangalore, one from Bombay, one from Delhi, one from here and there, 5, 6 big towns, and about 10 questionnaires. And I said, okay, very good. You're going to have 5,000 data on all these things and on all these tools that you'll be using. I said, how much time would the first test take, the second test take? The total time schedule was about 80 hours. I said, now 80 into 5,000. I think you have a plan for, कहते हैं ना 7 जन्म तक शादी चले, होता ना, आज शादी होगी 7 जन्म तक चले, तो you have a thing for 7 जन्म. No, I want to do PhD in this janam only. I said, then your design, your everything is absolutely faulty. Then I cut the whole design, chiseled it out, made it very much focused, and then I said, now, is this workable? All your tools goes to the dustbin. Only standardized tools which have some relationship with each other. Like if you want to do, say, study on job satisfaction. Are people job satisfied? If there is job satisfaction, there will be performance. If they are not job satisfied, then if there is burnout, again the decline will be there. So I said, you take job satisfaction, you take burnout, and then you do performance. Or you want to see how the juniors are perceiving the seniors. If that perception is bad, then there will be no work done at the junior level. So that limited thing was there. That's the thing. Articulation of goal, making the goal plan procedure systematic, and then requiring collection of data and interpretation of data. Now, data collection, as an examiner, I go to lots of people. Sometimes I find they'll say, my guide told me to use 10 tests. I said, why? What is the rationale of using 10 tests? बहुत अच्छा लगता है, बहुत सारा data हो जाता है. But what does it make any sense? Then you go and do factor analysis. Then you produce certain factors which you can't interpret, or multiple regression, you can't even interpret that. Don't do that. Have some methodology, some theoretical background on the basis of which you are linking certain areas. Then only the experimentation can take place. Now, here again, I try to make as much graphical as possible because I think graphical things hold in your mind. The research design. You can have explanatory research and you can have conclusive research. You can see the two things. Are they there? Now, in the explanatory research, it will be qualitative. You can have literature in that. You can have any research, because in literature also they have research, or maybe say in political science or public administration, you have these things. But when you come into conclusive research, maybe case study is there, but experimentation is there down below, experimentation. Now in explanatory, you can have exercises, case studies, surveys. Now think of surveys. In surveys, can you really control condition? In America, this election was taking place. At one point of time, the survey predicted for Hillary Clinton. She was almost winning according to the thing. But did she win at the end? No, things change. So your survey is not so foolproof as experimentation can be. Then it can be hierarchical research. It can be descriptive research, but experimental is absolutely focused research. And today, I'm just giving you an idea that this is also research. It's not that this is not research, but we are moving towards experimental research. Now, in experimental research, what happens is you can have exploratory, like you can say it can be pre-experimentation trial. It can be a pilot study. You want to see whether it's going to work or it is not going to work. For example, you do chemistry also, no? ये क्या हो रहा है? तो बोल रहे हैं. I think they want to ask something, but कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं? Shall I continue? Okay. Exploratory, you understand, na? that you want to try out something, a pilot work you want to do, you want to see whether it's workable or it is not workable. Because maybe you are, to begin with, you are fumbling with things, you are trying to find out what should I do. So like whenever I guide my PhD students, I used to say 6 months are for your pilot work. Go and do pilot work, go and collect small sample data and see whether your problem, whatever you are doing, is workable or not workable. If it is not workable, is no idea wasting 3-4 years and then at the end saying nothing has happened. So that is one part. But then if it is works, then you start having conclusive research. You focus it more, and here you have either descriptive or causal. In descriptive, you will use survey method also, interview method also. But in causal research, it will be cause and effect relationship, experimental design. If you add so much of chemicals, this will happen. If you mix this chemical and this chemical, this is going to be the result of it. Am I clear in this? Okay. Then you come here in descriptive, cross-sectional and longitudinal research. Longitudinal research is that you want to see over a period of time, say 5 years, what is going to happen. And cross-section is at this point of time, you are taking your survey or whatever you are doing, you are doing. This also I have sort of depicted over here, that what you do. This is an experimental design which there is pre-test and then there is post-test. Pre-test, where you take the control group at the initial level and then see where they stand. And then you have certain inputs and then do again a post-test study on that. And I'll give you an example of this also. But first of all, let me finish with this type of study and design. Experimental, observational. Experimental, again, we come over there. And sorry, here. You can see this. Is this visible? Experimental. Now, experimental would be when there is randomization, there's control, there is independent variable, dependent variable, then you see the results. But in observation, what you do? Longitudinal research is there, cohort, longitudinal research. For 5 years, you are taking a research. For 10 years, you are taking a research. Like I think, again, I'm giving you example of medical. I've come across a study in which they said that, okay, why do children have glaucoma, kala motiaban, and an old person has motiaban? Now, they wanted to see that is it a family linkage which is causing this. So then they started doing these cohort studies, longitudinal studies. And then they found, yes, there is some hereditary factor. What happened is, and I have seen those patients myself, this person had 7 daughters. I said, hats off, he had some himmat, 7 betiyan paida kar di. And out of those 7, 5 daughters had glaucoma. Now, a sensible parent, when you see after one daughter, the second daughter is also having glaucoma, you'll stop there, because something is happening in your blood chemistry, your DNA, which is causing all this. So you stop. But no, he carried on till 7, 5 ladkiyan glaucoma wali ho gayi. Now what will happen to those glaucoma children? So this was a longitudinal, 7 betiyan paida karte, I think 12-13 saal lag gaye the usko. Longitudinal ho gaya na? So longitudinal work is there. Then case study, of course, I have discussed with you. Cross-sectional. You take the cross-section today and then you see the cross-section of society at that point of level and you do their work. And then you have ecological population control. Now, ecological population control, here I'd like to use another science, which is pharmacy. In pharmacy, there is pharmacognosy, which is plant psychology, plant pharmacy, natural products and palm farm. Is it making sense to you people or no? It's not making sense. Pharmacy. Now, I'm trying to give you examples from all areas of science. Now, in pharmacy, pharmacognosy, you use plants. Don't you use plants for some of your own this thing? For example, I'm coming back to management again. You have something like, what shall I say, beauty objects which are developed. Okay. Have you heard of this thing that aloe vera can do a lot of good too? And aloe vera is being used. I think Baba Ramdev is using aloe vera a lot now. But you would not be knowing this, that aloe vera produced in Chandigarh and aloe vera produced in Kerala would be different. Are you getting me? You're from Kerala, no? These two aloe veras will not have the same, I would say, genetic code. Why? Because the soil in which they are different. कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं? आप बताओ ये क्या कर रहे हैं?
देखो सबका बंद है।
कुछ प्रॉब्लम तो हो रही है उनको। चलो वहां से वहां नहीं आता, यहाँ से वहां नहीं आता. This is also one of the parameters which I experienced a number of times. I must have given at least 50-60 lectures like this. Okay, so now another thing is, in your house you must be having a poda of tulsi. Okay, now do you know that tulsi, which is produced in Haridwar, is not the same as tulsi produced in Calcutta, जहाँ पे वो जाके मिलती है समुद्र में. The texture has changed, the soil has changed, so ecological factors, they do count a lot. Like for example, in cancer research, they found that Batinda in Punjab is supposed to be a cancer region. But I was reading another very interesting thing, that Tamil Nadu, relatively, women have lesser cancer than they have in the north. In north, breast cancer is like an epidemic. That is the reason government has subsidized heavily radiation, etc. in north. But in south, in Tamil Nadu, I don't know what is the state in Kerala or one, but in Tamil Nadu, what they found was that there is a lot of intake of coconut oil. They cook in coconut oil. And then medical studies have shown that coconut oil restricts the growth of cancer. And that is the reason women over there are relatively free from cancer. So what is happening over here? Ecological factors. So when you do research, there are so many parameters that have to be kept in mind. Okay. Now, experimentation. Now we come to this. We have seen a global picture of research. We come to this. Why do we perform experiments? क्यों करते हैं? Why? बोलिए क्यों करते हैं? यहाँ मत देखिए, बस क्यों करते हैं? Why? There is a problem before us. We want to see the scientific reality of that problem. We want to compare this with this, this with this, this with this, and then see for the strength of material. Okay. Now you want to construct a building as an engineer. So you like to see the strength of material. Don't you keep on experimenting with new material? Okay. I don't know much of engineering. I'm not an engineer and I'm not an architect, but I teach architects also. I teach engineers also. So I've learned from them that when you build buildings, you have now come across a material which looks like wood and it is not wood, which prevents white ants from eating it. White ants, dimak kha jati thi. So you would bring wood, not teak wood को नहीं खाती, पर वो जो पत्तल वगैरह उसको खा जाती हैं. Am I correct? So what is happening is you're making comparison and you're saying, okay, it looks like wood, it is not wood, and it is safe and it is not giving you any white ant. Try to get our head around an issue and make this comparison. Compare two or more things, algorithms, explain how, why some property works, some property does not work. Demonstration. Demonstrate a point, a proof of concept that you have said, this is my theory. Okay, Einstein gave you theory of relativity, but then he kept on giving demonstration through his experiments of this theory. Am I correct? And what happened to Newton's gravity? It was questioned because in demonstration certain parameters were not happening. Then theory of validation. After you come across a number of studies which validate your thing, then it becomes a theory which is acceptable all over the world. It is not just that you to be accepted in India, it will be accepted in Russia also, it will be accepted in Japan also, it will be accepted in USA also. This becomes and people get Nobel laureate on the basis of those theories. Am I correct? Haan ya na? Yes. Okay. Now what is this method that we are talking about? It is clear, organized approach to scientific experimentation, in which we are going to be very systematic, and we do at each point of juncture of that experiment, we are going to be very cautious. Now, plan containing source, goal, path to get there. And that circle, if you remember now mentally, that circle that I showed you, you are coming to now integration, and you are coming to a point where you identify these are the variables, these have to be controlled, these have to be varied at certain point of time. Now, if you don't have a sound method, if you just do helter melter anything, kuch bhi karke kar denge, so what happens? It is restricted to mainly exploratory experimentation and can gain intuition but no real answers. And then it is difficult to justify the results because you cannot show that they are statistically significant at a certain level. But if you have control method, then it allows full range of types of experimentation, can be used to determine clear answers, facilitate justification of results, because they are now statistically significant. And significance means that if a result is significant at 1% level, 99 times it will occur, only one time it may not occur. But if it is 0.001%, it means it's 1,999, it will occur, only 0.01% it may not occur. So we have to move toward that. And in the world of industry, now they are talking of sigma 6, not only sigma 3, sigma 6. Sigma 6 means almost you are at the perfect level in designing the experiment. Now, first of all, you select the problem. Problem has to be focused, not like the way that girl said, यहाँ भी कर लेंगे, वहाँ भी कर लेंगे, 5,000 का डेटा हो जाएगा, 10 tool test जाएंगे. No, you focus it to a limited area of work. Consider its relevance. Is it relevant to you or it's not relevant to you? What is the point of the problem domain? क्या करना चाहते हैं आप उसमें? And what do you hope to learn? What are you going to get out of it? What cannot be learned? Certain parameters, they may be beyond you, so you cannot learn those. Do not pick problems without reason or purpose just because it is commonly used. Now, this happens when people are going in for PhDs, and I know some guides also, they say, 4 thesis खोल लो और अपना काम शुरू कर दो. Now, what are you going? Makhi pe makhi marna. This is not a makhi pe makhi marna. This is what the clerks do in the secretariat also. They say, us file pe ye hua tha, is file pe bhi ye hoga. No, every case can be a new case. So now you have to focus yourself with something that your problem, whatever you're doing, it's going to give you dividends for future application to something. If I have time, I can share some of my own research. Would you like me to share? Would you like me to share some research to show that you can focus certain things? Now, maybe I'm a woman myself also, and my students were majority female students. So I used to find that somewhere, sometime the period of the month, they go haywire, they start crying, they do funny things, and something is happening. So I went into studies and I said that what is happening? Then I came across a work once a month phenomena. What happened to women once a month? Their periods, menses. Okay. Now, I said, okay, let me see what is happening. I went into physiology, that estrogen, progesterone balance is getting upset during that period when you are having that periods. And your physiology, your physiology is getting jumbled up at this period of time. Now, of course, as men also, you know, your wives have periods once a month. And if they don't have, then they're pregnant. Okay. So what women were doing, they were eating chocolate. क्या कह रहे हैं ये? आप ही बोल रहे हैं. It's very interesting because this is how I came across this thing. So I found that I said, क्या करते हो? कहते बहुत चॉकलेट खाने को मन करता है. We have chocolates and we have समोसे खाते हैं और चाट वगैरह खाते हैं. We have lots of these things. And then you have PMT. PMT means bloated up body, VP, crying a lot, becoming emotionally irritable and things like this. So I said, okay, now something is happening that there are people, women, not all women are having these extreme symptoms. So I administered test, Moose questionnaire, and I isolated women with low PMT, women with very high PMT. And to women with very high PMT, I did nutritional counseling with them, gave them a diet chart, nutritional counseling, and relaxation. I had developed that technique. And 6 months after that, they said, you have given us a new lease of life. We feel life could be so nice. And yes, now people around us, they are feeling that we are much better people and healthier people because now we are not feeling that itchy and crying and BP and bloating and things like that. Now, my research led to so much of comfort to people. And then I continued that further, that if women are having high PMT, what is the perception of children? Their adolescent children, what are they perceiving? I gave them test. How do you perceive? Your mother said, our mother is all the time bickering and crying and irritating and chillati rehti hai humko and things like that. After 6 months of this intervention, again I gave test to those children. And they said, no, Mami bahut achhi hai, she's very nice and very this and that. Now what had happened was, I gave an intervention program in which their PMT could be reduced and they could come back to a normalcy. With that, the interpersonal relationships also improved. And this, I produced about 5-6 PhDs in this area. And the subjects, till when they meet me now, they said, Madam, aapne hamari zindagi badal di. So are we doing something which has a social value, social cause? And here, when I do work with the engineers and they go to industry, I always plead with them, whenever you go and you do something, think of this. Are you going to leave the world a better place for your children or a world full of pollution and like Batenda, cancer zone? Or are you going to make Jamna not even worth looking at? Or you are spoiling Ganges and then you are putting a lot of chemicals over there. Whatever you produce, whatever you look forward, is there concept of green orientation? ISO 14,000, is there? Then you are doing something fruitful to the progeny. Otherwise, you are just making money and that is about all. Am I correct? Okay, then we pick the problems. Again, they're simple, salient, to the point, interesting to you. Now, here I would like to say, don't take up a research project which doesn't go with your heart. दिल लगता है तो करो, दिल नहीं लगता तो बिल्कुल नहीं करो. And I have to tell my students, if you are taking up a problem, is this problem near to your heart? तब तो करो. Because I have done produced PhD in criminal psychology. I said, अगर तो criminal psychology करके अच्छा लगता है कि we can bring about a change in the attitude of the criminals, तो करो, नहीं तो मत करो. So yes, they came forward, and I remember one PCS lady, she came and I said, you are almost in 50, अब कर रहे हो PhD? कहते हाँ करूंगी, और I am in the home department. तो home department is तो prison department को करता है, data collect हो जाएगा. मतलब she did a very good work in criminal psychology with me, and she got a fellowship in America on the basis of that work. So that work was useful, and she left PCS and she went there. So आप वो काम कर रही है जिसको करके खुशी मिले, आपका दिल उसमें लगे, तब आप काम करेंगे, नहीं तो मक्खी पे मक्खी मारेंगे, प्लेजराइज काम करेंगे. Illustrative of interesting problem of study, consistent with existing relevant studies, analyzable and understandable. ये नहीं कि भाई अब निकाल तो लिया, आप डेटा को क्या करेंगे, कैसे उसको इंटरप्रेट करेंगे, पता ही नहीं चल रहा. I can tell you, there was one PhD thesis, वहाँ पे उसमें लिखा था a study to do comparison between this and this. And the analysis was correlation. I said, if you want to find the difference between these two variables, how does correlation fit into that? And correlation in multiple regression also. I said, what is multiple regression going to tell you about this? I said, your design was so simple. It was repeated measure design. You should have found T ratios of correlated means, and that was about all. कहते इतना simple. मैंने कहा हाँ बिल्कुल इतना simple. But that would have given you some tangible, manageable thing to be able to share with people. अब तुमने correlation निकाल दिया and you don't even know how to give the interpretation of that correlation. तो ये चीजें बहुत जरूरी होती है. आई थिंक ये थोड़ा सा मैं स्किप कर जाऊं कि ग्रुप्स आपने कैसे बनाने हैं और क्या करना है. थोड़ा हैवी हो गया है कि नहीं? करना चाहोगे ये? मैं तो करा सकती हूँ, मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Would you like to do this also? Okay, shall I skip this? This is that when you are designing your experiment, the groups that you try to make, they have to be very carefully done. Otherwise, again, your whole research should go haywire. Okay, now you can have two types of research. One is observational, which ex post facto and these type of things are coming. And then there are experimental, cause and effect relationship, extremely controlled conditions and experimental design. Now you can have treatment versus control group. Like in pre-post design, you're having treatment versus control group. And you can have assignment by experimental like counterbalancing. In counterbalancing, what happens? Supposing you have given A, B, and C, and you finish at that. But you feel somewhere that A came first, B came second, C came last. So the sequencing may be disturbing. So what you can do after doing A, B, C, you can do C, B, A. A came first, A came last also. C came last, and then in the next series it came first. So you are counterbalancing any serial effect, if that can mean. That is what this thing means. Now, this was about experimental. Now, right in the beginning, I told you that many times you can't control everything. So that becomes quasi experimental. You are doing experiment, but it is not totally under your control. So this kind of quasi experimental relates to a particular type of experiment or study in which one has little or no control. Now, if you have little or no control on the factors, then what you do? You are using empirical data. There is empirical data. There are, I would say, variables which you are measuring. But there are random assignment because all the conditions you are not in a position to control. होता नहीं है. आप सारी conditions control. आप कर सकते हो control. In fact, most of your research experimental is quasi-experimental. It is not fully experimental. हाँ, physics में they can do. Maths में they can do. Chemistry maybe sometimes you may not be able to do, and you go into a quasi-experimental. Then another unique element often involved in this experimental method is the use of series analysis, both interrupted and non-interrupted. Series means you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like that, interrupt it, and then go for the next. And this also is experimental, but series mein. The first part of creating quasi-experimental design is to identify the variables. आप पहले variables identify कीजिए. How many variables you want to take up? You want to take up A, B, C, D. तो आपके पास 4 variables होगा. And then you give further conditions of those variables. Or you say no, I just want to make comparison between A and B. So it is a simple comparison between A and B. The quasi-independent variable will be the X variable, the variable that is manipulated in order to affect dependable variable. Now, this variable, the X variable, which you are going to manipulate, उसमें आप क्या करेंगे? You will say, okay, like in chemistry, I'll add this much quantity of this particular chemical and then see what happens. So now I'll add, say, maybe 0.1 milligram, 0.5 milligram, 0.10 milligram, 0.20 milligram. Okay. So you are make 4 gradation, and then you want to see what are the results, what is going to happen. Then this quasi-experimental will be there. Okay. Now, quasi-experimental के बाद आपका आता है what is ex post facto design, which I have been talking about earlier also. Now, certain things happen which you cannot control. which have happened. Maybe in industry they have happened, maybe natural phenomena they have happened, but you could not control. But yes, after they have happened, you can still make study of that. So that is what we mean by ex post facto design. Is a non-experimental research in which pre-existing groups are compared in some dependent variable. Um, Here I'd like to give you again a study. I think about 20, 30 years back, there was a total solar eclipse in India. I don't know whether you are aware of it or not. And the total eclipse could be seen at Jaipur, that region, Jaipur. So people from all over, scientists from all over the world came over there. And the medical faculty said, okay, there has been a lot of myth that when there is full solar eclipse, pregnant women should not go out. कहते नहीं है, तो pregnant women ना जाओ, because the solar eclipse is going to affect the fetus. So they said, अब हम इंसान को तो भेज नहीं सकते कि भाई तुम जाओ या ना जाओ. कौन प्रेग्नेंट औरत कहे कि हाँ मैं जाके आके देखूंगी कि वो होता है कि नहीं होता. So what they did, they had rats and cats and animals category, whom they made them pregnant before the solar eclipse took place. Solar eclipse को तो वो control नहीं कर सकते थे. That was ex post facto. But this thing they could control. That they could be early pregnancy, middle pregnancy, and later pregnancy. Like औरतों में होती ना, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. And then they exposed these animals who were pregnant to the solar eclipse. And they found that those animals which were in the last phase of their pregnancy, nothing happened. Their offspring were born quite okay. But yes, those which came in the first trimester of pregnancy, yes, solar eclipse was affecting. Now that is a very big scientific result. कि जो हमारी myth थी कि pregnant औरत को नहीं जाना चाहिए first trimester में, that is true, नहीं जाना चाहिए, उसका effect होता है. Now this is ex post facto design research भी हुई, लेकिन already established चीजें थी. This experiment appears to be true experiment because of the way the groups are separated and then the way the analysis is performed, but it is still subject to the same limitation as non-experimental research. आपने solar eclipse तो नहीं control किया ना, और कितना था वो, पूरा का पूरा सूरज ढक गया था कि ज्यादा सूरज ढका था, कुछ सूरज रह गया था. अब भी जो होगा अमेरिका में, जो होगा इस साल में, I don't know how much of control they'll be able to perform, because पूरा सूरज कभी भी आपने क्लिप्स होते देखा अपनी जिंदगी में? Have you seen? पूरा सूरज ढक जाए, थोड़ा सा रह जाता है ना. अब वो थोड़ा सा किस तरफ रहता है, that you can't control. So again, क्या हो रहा है, आप रिसर्च कर रहे हो, एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन कर रहे हो, बट वो छोटा सा पार्ट आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते. Okay. The assignment of participants to the level of the independent variable is based on events that occurred in the past. This is where the name is derived from. The independent variable is from the past, but dependent variables like those rats were exposed, that is what you are controlling. This non-experimental research is similar to an experiment because it compares two or more groups of individuals with similar backgrounds. Like there were rats, there were white rats in the first trimester also, second and third also. So they were comparing them, were exposed to different conditions as a result of their natural histories. This is what happened. Okay, now we come to factorial design. Any questions so far? Anything you'd like to ask? And so far, is it clear? समझ आ गई सबको? Okay. Now we come to hardcore factorial design. Now this is in that normal probability curve on the right side, right direction. A factorial experiment is an experiment whose design consists of two or more factors, each of which discrete possible values or levels, and whose experimental units take on all possible combinations of these levels across such factors. At this point of time, I missed my board because I like to do a lot of drawing on the board and a lot of things to show you how it happens. It can happen like that. I'll give you an example. Factorial design. Um, Again, from this time I'll have to give from one of my own studies in psychology. And on this study I had done on effect of placebo and drugs. Now, placebo means that you just give glucose water without any medicine. Okay, but medicines that I had taken up was dexamphetamine, which is excitant. I think, I don't know how far you know. These days, children I've seen who are doing their 10th grade or 12th grade exam, they take a lot of Red Bull. Red Bull का नाम सुना है? No. Their children are taking Red Bull. Okay. Now, Red Bull can do a lot of harm because it gives you, for a certain period of time, excitement. And you say, हाँ, Red Bull लेके मुझे बहुत अच्छी पढ़ाई मैंने कर ली है. But if you keep on taking it persistently, the child starts having headache. Persistent. So I didn't give persistent. I just gave them dexamphetamine to one group and placebo, and then phenobarbital. Phenobarbital is depressant. And then I made different quantities of this. Then suggestion was also in this. So then I had two groups, male and female, suggestible and non-suggestible. So what happened? A, male, female. B variable, suggestible, non-suggestible. C variable, 3 type of drugs. So this became 2 by 2 by 3. You get my point? And all the conditions control in each group. What will you have? You'll have A1, B1, C1. Then A1, B1, C2. A1, B1, C3. Okay. Then you'll go to A2, B1, C1, like that. And in the end, what you'll have is 2 by 2 by 3. So 4 into 3, 12. The last down below will be 12. Now, 12 conditions, how many subjects do you want to have in each? So I said, okay, minimum I'd like to have 20 subjects in each, because the data should be there so that we can come to some conclusion on that. So if I have 20 in each, 12 into 20 means how much? 240. 240, but absolutely controlled. In each compartment you have 20 people, and then you make comparison on the basis of that. This is in a nutshell what this means. I'll read it out to you. A full factorial design may also be called a fully cross design. This is a cross design, no? You're going across A, B, C. And another very interesting thing is that if you do only T ratio, the comparison of two things, comparison of A1 and A2, there is no cross design at all. But yes, if you are comparing A1 with B1 with C1, then you do ANOVA and you find interaction. They may be significant, and you may find that, okay, in this particular category, A2 was girls. Girls, when they went into B1 category, suggestible, and then you gave them dexamphetamine, the result was heightened. So what are you having? Interaction between these. समझ आया नहीं आया? नहीं आया ना? मुझे आपके चेहरे से नजर आ जाता है. I do a lot of work on communication and I can read people a lot. I'll try to explain in a simpler way. Two things may be independent of each other, okay? But when they blend together, they give another effect. Interaction हो जाता है उनका. For example, खाने में ही देती हूँ. खाने में क्या चीजें होती हैं जो जिनका इफेक्ट उल्टा होता है? ओके, आप पपीता खाते हो? पपाया. Now, papaya taken with milk gives you a cross result. पता है आपको? नहीं, मैं आपको बता रही हूँ. क्रॉस रिजल्ट होता है इनका. फायदा करने की जगह नुकसान करता है. Similarly, when you take medicine, if the doctor is sensible, he'll tell you this medicine is not to be taken with milk. This medicine is to be taken with warm water. You get my point? Now, the medicine which you had not to take with milk, you take with milk. आपका पेट गड़बड़ हो जाएगा. तो इंटरेक्शन क्या हुआ? पेट गड़बड़ हो गया. ठीक है. But if you take the same medicine with water, hot water, it doesn't give you anything. But there is a third variable, but you take antibiotic, but you also take sporolac. Are you familiar with these words? No. मैं डॉक्टर को भी पढ़ाती हूँ तो मेरे पास सबकी इंफॉर्मेशन होती है. नाउ स्पोरोलैक व्हाट दैट डज, आपके स्टमक में जो हेल्दी एंजाइम्स हैं वो क्रिएट करता है. जितना आपका एंटीबायोटिक किल करता है वो उसको बचा लेता है. अगर वो आप नहीं लो तो इंटरेक्शन क्या होगा? आपको लूज मोशंस हो जाएंगे, गैस बननी शुरू हो जाएगी. एंड दोज ऑफ यू हु हैव हैड एंटीबायोटिक्स, खाए कभी स्ट्रॉन्ग वाले, तो इफेक्ट होता है कि नहीं होता? उसके बाद में कहते हैं भूख नहीं लग रही, ये नहीं हो रहा, मुंह में छाले हो गए. बट इफ यू टेक स्पोरोलैक यू वुड नॉट हैव दिस इफेक्ट. इंटरेक्शन हो गया कि नहीं हो गया? सो अगर आप ए बी सी कब A1 B1 C1 ऐसे करके बना रहे हो, when you do the analysis में आपको पता चल जाता है A1 के साथ जब B1 जाए और C2 जाए तो इफेक्ट ज्यादा होता है. You get my point? This you can get only through factorial design, not through just T ratio. वहां पे तो you are just comparing A with B or A with C, just one comparison, and that is about all. This is what I am trying to. अब समझ आ गई? आई समझ? Thank you. Now, for the vast majority of factorial experiments, each factor has only two levels, like A1, A2, B1, B2. These are simpler interactive design, but there are certain conditions in which you take multiple interactions, you can take A, B, C, and D. And I have done one of the experimental studies on this also. This was a work on reminiscence. Reminiscence is after you've learned something, how much do you retain after a certain period of time? So there was one condition which was period of time, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 80 minutes. Three conditions. Then there was intelligence level 1, 2, and 3. 3 by 3 gives you 9. Then male and female 18. Okay, one more variable, again 2, 18 and 2, 36. Now that was 36 variable in which, and there was a lot of work because 36 conditions were there and each condition had minimum 10 subjects. So you had 360 experiments to be performed, and that was a long affair. And then ANOVA. So usually people go for just 2 by 2 factorial design. So 2 by 2 means A1, A2, B1, B2, and that is about all. If the number of combinations of a full factorial design is too high, like I just now I described to you, to be logistically feasible, a fractional factorial design may be done. That you don't go to the end. At one point of time, this stop is there, you stop at the 1 by 1 cross section or 1 by 1 tree, and you don't go to the 4 or 5 at all. You don't leave it because it becomes very unmanageable sometimes. A factorial experiment allows for estimation of experimental error in two ways, because errors are always creeping in some way or the other. The first experiment can be replicated and principle cannot. You can replicate it and yet it may not be replicable. Replication is more common for small experiment and is very reliable way of assessing experimental error. Now, small experiment would be just take two variables, 2 by 2. You will be able. But if you are taking 4 variables and each 4 category is having either 2 or 3 subcategories, then it becomes a huge amount, and then sometimes it may not be easily interpretable. When the number of factors is large, typically more than 5 factors, but this does vary by application. Replication of the design can become operationally difficult. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like I gave you example where there were 4 or 5 variables, and then it becomes absolutely difficult. Interpretation becomes very difficult. The interaction that you get between the sum of squares, that becomes also very difficult. As with any statistical experiment, the experimental runs in a factorial experiment should be randomized to reduce the impact and bias. Okay, randomization. Now, randomization means that we just don't go and take one class and say, अच्छा इन सारी class का data कर लेंगे. If you say कि I'm going to use male and female in the category of 20 to 25 years of age. So you go to different sections. You don't just go to one school, one class, and you finish that. That will be limiting down your number. Now, there are certain techniques for doing randomization. One way of doing randomization is you take a telephone directory, every 10th person in that, you select that. Or every 50th person, you select that. That is randomization. Then there is a table of random numbers. That also gives you your random. That is randomization. That means that you prevent loaded data on one side. Because you are taking one class only, one section only, it is a loaded data. So randomization can neutralize that. Factorial experiments can be used when there are more than 2 levels of each factor. Like I tell you, 2 by 2, or at the most 2 by 2 by 2. That is manageable. However, the number of experimental runs required 3 level or more factorial designs will be considerably greater than for 2 level counterparts, because especially in behavioral science, there are so many variables which come into picture. So normally just 2 by 2 doesn't work. 3 level or 4 level you do have to take. Factorial designs are therefore less attractive of a researcher wishes to consider more than 2 levels. Now, for a researcher to have this factorial design, the more factors you are adding, the more control you are adding. Of course, the experimental rigor comes into that. Then the findings become almost there, like maybe sigma 4 or sigma 5. But managing it, doing it becomes a very problematic, because you have those and then you have to do experiment on each particular individual and then find the result. It becomes difficult. But yes, in your case, like in engineering, I think even 2 by 2 can do. So teacher, can you 2 by 2 can be managed? Am I correct? Okay. Then a factorial experiment can be analyzed by using ANOVA or a regression analysis. This is statistics. I'm not going to deal with statistics now. This is not my schedule. I think somebody else will be doing. But yes, in our days, there was no computer. So in my case, I have been able to do all statistics manually with my hand. So even now, if you ask me and there's a board, I can write down all the formulas and find out the ANOVA for you. Because I've been doing all my research with my own hands in that, and statistics in that. Now what is happening is, you do find the data, you go for SPS 7. नहीं, SPS 7 जाते हो ना, और फिर वो whatever the Janambatra comes, you say कि हमको interpret कर दे इसको. Because my students used to come like that to me and I said, this is wrong. No, madam, this is done by the computer. मैंने कहा, what can the computer do if you feed a wrong data? मैंने कहा, for me, the data speaks to me because I have been doing statistical analysis through my own hand. So the data speaks to me. तुम्हारे डेटा में ये negative correlation आना चाहिए, नहीं आया तो तुमने गड़बड़ करी है. Then she would go back, feed it and said, हाँ मैम आप तो जादूगर हो, आपको कैसे पता चल गया? मैंने कहा मैंने हाथ से सब कुछ किया हुआ है इसलिए मुझे पता चलता है. So this is what I mean. पर आजकल ठीक है, technology has given you a lot of comfort, but comfort means that somewhere knowledge is being truncated. Now, experiments have some issues, limitations kya lo, issues kya lo, jaise हैं replications, independent observation of a single treatment. Now, in replication, if you are doing a laboratory replication controlled by instruments, okay, replication would not cause a problem. But if human subjects are involved or animals are involved, how can you control human subjects? How can you control animals? Now I'll just give you one example of this replication. I used to do intelligence tests, aptitude tests and all those. Okay, and I felt somewhere if you are mentally disturbed, then it will affect your performance on your cognitive ability. But I had to prove it experimentally. So my PhD data was part of that was intelligence test. Some of my peer group in the university, they were my subjects also. So I knew that today that person is very disturbed. किसी लड़की ने दिल तोड़ दिया उसका, something like that happened, so he's very disturbed. So I should say, you please come and do be my subject again. Now normally when you give the same intelligence test again, the scores improve because practice makes you better. Now such type of data, of course it was very limited small data, but just about 30 people whom I could get out of hundreds of people that I had done. But you'd be surprised that the points which came down, they were average 10 points decrement, which meant that if you are disturbed, your cognitive ability goes down. Now, this was a very important thing. It is replication just of intelligence test, not seeing the mental condition or the emotional condition of the person can give you a wrong result. बट इफ यू कीप दैट फैक्टर इन माइंड दैट जब वो डिस्टर्ब्ड होगा और आप फिर इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट कराओगे, उसका स्कोर फॉल करेगा. अब दिस थिंग आई replicated on sports women because I felt that when sports women are having PMT, premenstrual tension, their performance should decline. And yes, I found that. And that was a very big eye opener for the sports people, that when women are in that period of premenstrual tension, you have to do something about that PMT so that their performance does not show decline. तो आप देखते हैं ना कि जब ओलंपिक में गए या इधर गए, कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स में गए, suddenly a girl who was doing very good in shooting or doing something in gymnast and she is not doing, bronze भी नहीं आया उसका, कहीं gold expect करते bronze. And if you see during that day period, she must be under the PMT phase, जिसकी वजह से ये सारा हो रहा है. So आप मेरी बात समझ रहे हो ना, replication किस तरह हम कर रहे हैं, that is important. Then variance. Variance means के variance मतलब vary करना. Variance means आपका जो dependent variable है वो किस किस independent variable के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है. Sometimes what happens is that certain variables you can't control and yet they are there and they are influencing. अभी जैसे मैंने आपको बताया PMT factor जो है आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन स्पोर्ट्स पर्सन पे that is causing effect, and so the variance is there. Then measuring tool that comes compares different treatments. Now if your measuring tool is not calibrated properly, or if you are giving a psychological test that is not valid or that is not reliable, your results are also going to be spurious. Then internal validity. Whatever test you are doing or whatever instrument you are using, is that internally valid? तब तो ठीक है, नहीं तो ठीक नहीं है. The extent to which an experiment accomplishes its goal. Now, this also you can find out because, again, I'm giving example of physics. In physics, you'll be able to control to a great extent. But when you are having human subjects, even for your architectural designing, if human subjects are there, there can be people of different nature, different type, different requirement, and that can affect your this thing. Then the reproducibility. Can you reproduce the experiment again? Like ex post facto, you can't reproduce it again. The solar eclipse has taken place, it has taken place. A tsunami has come, it has come. And a tsunami or a natural calamity also in two cultural can make a lot of पता ही सब पूछ रहे हैं क्या कर रहे हैं, सारा गड़बड़ कर दी. हाँ, what I tell you about this reproducibility, like two cultures also can make a difference of natural calamity. You remember in Gujarat also there was a very big earthquake, there was a big calamity, and it was as bad as tsunami in Tamil Nadu, almost as bad as that. But people over here, Punjab has very good quality in them. We like to help people a lot. So we all collected old clothes and old things and sent truckfuls of loads of those things. When they went to Gujarat, Do you know the people over there sent those things back? He says, हम आपके पुराने कपड़े नहीं पहन सकते, हमें देना है तो हमें काम दो, so that we bounce back to our own normalcy. But when the same trucks went to Tamil Nadu, they were acceptable. So you see the difference. So replicability हो सकती है, नहीं हो सकती ना. Cultural variation also is causing non-replicability. And then the ability of others to replicate the experiment. Here, I would like to say inter-experimenter reliability is there. One experimenter does one research, one study, another experimenter does study, its variation. Because that experimenter is a human being. If somebody is emotionally fixated to the hypothesis, unconsciously he will create environment with the same result should occur again. But if a person goes with a neutral mind, जो भी आएगा result मिलेगा, the result would be different. So this is what it means by that. And now that means we have to have a lot of control of lot of things over there. Then external validity. एक तो internal validity, एक बाहर की validity है. That can also affect you. Then the sample that you are taking. Now, selection of sample is equally important as collection of data. अब जैसे मैंने आपको कहा random design, there are random numbers. You can take a directory and then have 10th, 20th, जो भी लिखना है. Now that will be random. But if you go to a class and you say, मैंने सारे class को करा लिया, random है, random नहीं है. They become limited to a particular class. But this is called convenient data. Mostly our students also used to do this. They have to have a convenient data. या convenience से भी ज्यादा होगा, दो सहेलियां हैं, उन्होंने कहा अच्छा मैं इसी की क्लास में ना मैं भी इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट दे देती हूँ और तू फिर उसके बाद अपना टेस्ट कर लेना, मैं अपना टेस्ट कर लूंगी. So with the same group को हम ऐसे कर लेंगे. Now that can create a lot of problem in experimentation. And can the results be generalized? How much generalization can you make on the basis of that? केस स्टडी पे तो ज्यादा आप जनरलाइज नहीं कर सकोगे. ऑब्जर्वेशन, सर्वे पे मैं आपको बताई है ट्रम्प का और हिलेरी क्लिंटन का. लास्ट मोमेंट तक हिलेरी क्लिंटन वाज विनिंग और एंड में आके कौन जीता? ट्रम्प. और हमारे नहीं होता. वही बीजेपी आ रही है, कांग्रेस आ गई. यहाँ कांग्रेस अमरिंदर का क्या पता बादल ही आ जाए. Who knows? You can never. Then data analysis. You can have numerical scales, nominal, ordinal, interval. I think ये तो कोई और कराएगा ना. But I'm just giving them an idea. क्यों डॉक्टर तुलसी? ये तो कोई और कर नहीं. ये भी data analysis का भी करेगा. Whenever anybody is doing data analysis, you can see that these things वो भी आपको refer करेंगे कि हम कौन सा scale use कर रहे हैं. Because in parametric you should have ratio scales. Okay. And another you can non-parametric आप कर सकते हैं. Nominal scales आपके हो सकते हैं. Assumption for comparison of means के लिए आपको normal probability कर्व आपका होना चाहिए. Independent and random normality probability variances. वही normal probability कर्व जो है होगा तो आप parametric कर सकते हैं. आप mean जिसकी निकाल सकते हैं, standard deviation निकाल सकते हैं, वहां parametric कर सकते हैं. बाकी में non-parametric कीजिए. Parametric यह चीजें हैं. Correlation between two variables, Pearson product moment correlation, T ratio, independent and dependent means, where you can do T ratio of correlated means and T ratio of independent means. ANOVA, factorial design. If you have a factorial design, you can't use any other statistics except ANOVA. You can have simple ANOVA. If you have one variable A, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, you can use a simple ANOVA. But if you have A into B into C, then it is a multiple ANOVA. MANOVA, Spearman product moment correlation, linear regression, all this is parametric. Then non-parametric is when you have a multimodal distribution, then you can't take it as a continuity. There can be, say, chi-square for, again, 2 by 2. You can say men and women, literate, non-literate, educated, non-educated. Again, they are 2 by 2, and you can find a chi-square. That is also dependable. Not only T ratio, chi-square is also dependable. Then Kruskal-Wallis test, sign test, Friedman ANOVA. You have for parametric also ANOVA, you have a non-parametric ANOVA. And logistic regression, there also you have regression, here also you have a regression. So many people think that if you can't use parametric statistics, your research goes haywire. No, it does not go haywire. You can use non-parametric data, non-parametric statistics for your tool. And then thank you for being with me on this journey. Any questions now? Anything that you'd like to ask?